What up, everybody? This is Trumpet Masterclass number 11. If you're new to the channel, my name is Aaron. Welcome to my living room where I do Trumpet Masterclasses every week or, or uploads every week on Wednesdays at this time. So every week I upload trumpet tutorials, practice tips just to help folks learn how to play the trumpet and get better at the instrument so we can have more fun playing music on this thing. So if you're interested in that, then please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss out on any new videos. So today is just going to be a quick Q&A. So I'm kind of planning on having 30 minutes to 45 minutes just to answer any questions that I get on the live stream, comments, and I also got some comments from the masterclass group that I have for this live stream. So I'm going to be answering those questions first, and then I'm going to be answering folks' questions on the stream, on the live. All right, so if you're just joining me, of course, what up, Cortland? He says, sorry for the hiatus. Wedding planning is tough. Oh, nice, you're getting married. Congratulations, man. When's the wedding? That's awesome. All right, so if you're just joining me, please, there's 7 folks in here. Just let me know who you are and say what up. So I like to talk to folks. I like to see new faces or new profile pics. I can't really see your face. Bazarine, what up? Good to see you too. Glad to have you back in the stream. All right, so we're just gonna step right and go ahead right into the masterclass and the Q&A. Oh, July 14th, nice, Cortland. Awesome. The 15th is my mother's birthday, so yeah, awesome. That's good. All right, so the first question I have for the masterclass is from email. They say that it's hard for them to remember so many scales and different scales. And my tip to that is, well, first I want to say that before I did this masterclass, I asked the masterclass group, what's the number one or the biggest challenge that you have learning or playing this instrument? So if you have one thing that you're working on or struggling with playing the trumpet, just let me know. Comment in the chat. If you're watching this on the replay, then comment down below your biggest challenge with playing the trumpet or music just in general, so I can help you as best as I can. So all right, so back to email's question about he's having trouble with learning different scales. Right, so my advice to that is really just start with one scale, one type, and be patient with yourself. And what I say to that is first learn how the scale works, really discover how it works, and discover like how you like to remember the scale. So like for major scales, for example, is it better to remember the scale as whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half? Or is it better to just know that all of the scale degrees are natural to the key? Or if you're a really music theory head like me, if you like to think about the major scale as 2 major tetrachords with a whole step in between, that can be one way that you remember that that's how a major scale is created. So if it's a new scale that you're learning, however, I guess you use that major scale as like your base, as your neutral thing. Can you shout me out? The Who Knows Gaming, what's up? Thank you for joining the live stream. But yeah, if know like how the scale is constructed, because that'll get you a bit closer to remembering the scale. And then after you remember that scale for what it is and how it's constructed, use that scale to compare it to other scales, right? So for instance, if you're trying to learn melodic minor scales and you're trying to get that under your fingers, use the major scale as a way to compare the two. So for instance, major scale is a little bit different from the melodic minor scale. The only difference is one note, and that note is the minor third. So if you think about the melodic minor scale, just think about the major scale, but the minor, the just think about the major scale, but think about the melodic minor scale as the third is flat. So all the notes are the same, but the third of the scale is flat. So that's how I like to remember melodic minor scales, is that it has all the same notes, but that one note, that minor third, and then that, then that way. So yeah, compare the two scales. Take your time with a particular scale that you're working on, and be able to play it on all 12 of the notes of the chromatic scale. All right. So hopefully that advice helps you out. But that's how I did it. I compared it to another scale that I already knew. Okay. All right. So the next question I had from the masterclass group is from Falling Rain, and their problem was that they used too much mouthpiece pressure. So my advice to that is, I've said this before in other master classes, is if you're getting too much mouthpiece pressure, especially in like the mid range or low range, and you're just jamming it into your face, loosen up the left hand grip. Loosen up. So you don't want to really strong arm or really get a really strong grip on this thing. You want to loosen up your grip, so you're not trying. It's not giving you that leverage to pull it back on your embouchure. And then it also too, you want to, if you're playing, you want to open up. Put the horn down. You want to open up your stance. So open up your arms. So like pretend that you have golf balls or tennis balls under your armpits, so you don't get this motion, because when you open up your arms, it allows you to decrease that leverage that you get from pulling it onto your face. So two tips: loosen up the left hand grip, and open up your arms. Also too, when I injured my embouchure, um, loosening up the grip and not really gripping the horn that much, like I would only try to hold it with my right hand, or well, kind of with my right hand, and then what I would do is just have a really loose grip. So so what happened was the horn was kind of falling off my face, and I had to use my air. I had to use my air to really get those notes out. So another thing too is let your air do most of the work. Now, once you get into the extreme high registers, I mean, yeah, there's going to be mouthpiece pressure. I mean, it's you can't really escape it, but that's just. But if you're really struggling in the mid to kind of high range of the tessitura of the instrument, then I suggest that you relax the left hand grip and open up your arms, so you don't, because when you close your arms, you have your bicep to help you out when you want to get those high notes out. So open up the arms so you don't do that. All right. So another question that I got, and there's six of them. There's six of them from the masterclass. So I appreciate everybody, um, sending in their questions and sending in what they're working on, or what's giving them their biggest issues. All right. So now this question was from Oka Samuel, and he says, and this is a long kind of explanation, but he says, "Thank you for taking time to teach us these things on trumpet. It has been so helpful. My greatest challenge is to not get to play my instrument every day. And when I have a gig or a play, my embouchure gets weak easily, and I find it hard to pitch a high note, a high tone. Is there any way to build my embouchure without rehearsing with my instrument?" That's a good question. I think my question to you, Oka, would be, what's holding you back from practicing on your instrument? Are you borrowing the instrument? Are you not really allowed to play your instrument where you live. Like, is it too loud, or or I don't know, like someone else has your instrument or whatever, um, or you can't take it home. So those are my questions to you because that gives me a little bit more clarity on the situation. But what I would like to say is that if, because I live in an apartment, so if you're having a hard time or your neighbors are giving you a hard time about practicing, I would say get a practice mute. Get a practice mute so it dampens the sound. I don't What I don't want to encourage you to do is practice on it more than a few minutes at a time because it can really mess with how you actually. Well, I don't want to say that, but it messes. It's not the actual horn. It has that mute in it, so it's you're not really playing the instrument to its full capabilities. Um, so the next day, I know if I practice with the practice mute too much, like if it's for like an hour or hour and a half, I know the next day, my my chops will feel a little bit strange, a little bit puffy, and it's hard to slot notes and stuff like that. So I would say if you are practicing with a practice mute, only limit it to a few minutes, at least per session, like 5-10 minutes. Don't do a whole 30 or 45 minute session on a practice mute. Okay, but if you do have your instrument and you don't have a practice mute, what I say is a good way to strengthen up the muscles or strengthen up the your embouchure when you can't really practice is maybe do some lip buzzes or do some mouthpiece buzzing or like some isometric exercises where maybe you put a pencil that pencil exercise in between your embouchure and you just hold it. I don't have a pencil right next to me. Or there's a little device, and I think that I have it's called the PEAT, the personal embouchure training thing. And and then yeah, so I would say I would say use the PEAT. Hey, what's up, Barbara? How you doing? So I would say, hey, I would say, I would say, if you can do some isometric type of exercises where you're still keeping this really nice and strong, but again, do that. Don't overdo it because you can hurt yourself. But there's no, I mean, there's lead pipe buzzing. You can do lead pipe buzzing, but there's no. I would like to just make this clear that there's no substitute for practicing the instrument, in its purest form. Barbara says she has a concert tonight. Good luck tonight. What are you going to be playing? What kind of concert is it? So there's no substitute for practicing the actual instrument. So any way that you can, try to squeeze in some time to practice on your actual instrument with no practice mute or anything. So, so yeah. So let me get to some questions actually on the live stream. If there's any people that have any questions. The Who Knows Gaming says, "What's popping? What's going on?" He also asks, "Can you give me a beginner trumpet tip?" Beginner trumpet tip. The number one tip I can give you is listen to a whole bunch of trumpet players and get their sound ingrained into your head. Barbara says I gotta go to practice. Yeah, nice. Go ahead and go practice and have fun at your concert and good luck. Thanks for popping in, Barbara. So one of my tips is listen to a lot of trumpet players and get that sound ingrained into your head and make it so clear that you want to produce it on your instrument. So that's the thing. That's the one thing that has helped me in my progression as a when I first started. In another masterclass, I talked about play-alongs. There's essential elements. There's standard of excellence. There's other type of band method books out there that have play-alongs, and then there's a professional trumpet player that plays on those records. It's not a MIDI track or anything, but use a play-along to really ingrain that sound in your head and play along with that trumpet player. as you're learning through the band method book, because that's one thing that has really developed my tone. Every time I got home after school, I would pop in that play along track, to practice. And what I would do, I would just put my headphones in and I would just play along with it. And to me, that was fun. It wasn't practice. But slowly but surely over the years, from sixth, seventh grade, um, I was able to produce a really nice tone because I was hearing it every day and producing it. So that's my number one tip: listen and play along to great sounds. All right, so we got some more questions in here. All right. Oh, I'm gonna mess up your name. Peiyuan Zhang. I think that's how you say your name. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right. But he's asking, or they're asking, have you ever tried the Yamaha silent trumpet mute? Yeah, I have tried it. I tried their. I didn't try their current model. I haven't tried that one, but I had a older model that they had. It was kind of like a cone shape. Now the model that they have, it looks like a flower on the end. It's flat, but I haven't tried that one yet. But yeah, I like the Yamaha silent brass mute. It was cool because you can plug in. There was like a device you can plug in and hear your trumpet sound like in your earphones. So that was cool. But what I have now is the shush mute, and it's lightweight. I like that it doesn't have as much back pressure, and so that's the mute of choice that I have that I use. So the shush mute um, as my practice mute. Do you like the anyone had? If you ever used the Yamaha silent trumpet mute, let me know. What do you think? All right. Nicholas says, I feel like I have an airy tone. Is it because I'm using too much mouthpiece pressure? Any tips? It might be because of mouthpiece pressure, but it could also be that your aperture, the opening in the middle of your armature, the aperture is too big. So for instance, you might get a airy tone because your aperture is too big and there's tons of air rushing in. So that's a clear tone, but if I open up my aperture a little bit bigger and I try to I'm just gonna open up my aperture. It's gonna be a little bit bigger, and then you're gonna hear like a rush of air. Like there might be a rush of air. So your aperture may be a little bit too big. So what I would say is try to make it smaller. Um, just go back to learning how to form your armature. So say M, and then make a small airstream come out. Think of like a thin piece of spaghetti noodle, and pretend that you're blowing that noodle straight out, or a laser beam, and try to make that airstream a little bit smaller. So that's kind of like my tip if you have an airy tone. Maybe close up your aperture a little bit. Yeah, the shush mute, Benjamin. Yeah. Cortland says, when composing, what is the first thing you do in terms of creating horn lines? Do you start with the chord? Did you start with the chord changes? The first thing I do, like because I arrange for the horn section for my church here in Chicago. So the first thing I do is obviously listen to the tune, um, and I just sing to myself. I try to sing melodies um, out loud. But if I'm composing, sometimes ideas come to me, and it's usually melodies, like melodies that come first, or maybe it's a bass line that comes to my head first. I don't know. It's not really methodical. but I don't really just say like right now I'm going to sit down and compose a piece. But sometimes I get inspiration from a lot of other things, and sometimes I'm in the car and I hear something in my head. I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. So I get my phone and I record that idea. I sing it out loud, and I just save it for another time. So what I would say is, um, be very aware of like the ideas that are floating around in your head, and if you hear something, just record it. Take a few seconds, take your phone out, record it, sing it into your phone, save it for later so you don't forget that idea. There's been plenty of times where I had like ideas and I was like, oh, that's a cool idea, and then I didn't record it, I didn't document it. So I have tons of ideas just in my phone waiting for me to mess with. So, but yeah, after that, I guess if you're talking about step by step, what I do after that is I write it down, and if it's just like a really composed piece and it's just mine, it's not an arrangement. Um, I think about, okay, what's the general key? Because I don't really know. I'm just singing. So I figure out the general key, and then I figure out a bass line. If the bass line isn't something that I've sang already, and I figure out, okay, if this is my bass line, if this is my melody and this is my bass line, what are some chords that I can use? What are some chords I can use to really make it sound interesting or sound cool or whatever? Um, so I would say just experiment with different chord types, with different bass notes, and then after that, try out some chord changes. Maybe plug it into GarageBand or Sibelius or whatever outlet you like to notate your music, and listen back to it and see, and just constantly go back and forth to what you're hearing. Get some inspiration from um, other musics, other genres, and incorporate that into your tune. But usually chord changes come last. It's a last resort. It's always the melody that comes first for me. The melody or the bass line. Corlin, you also said that you prefer the shush mute over the over the Yamaha less because it's less back pressure than the Yamaha. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's less back pressure than the Yamaha. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, if you're in this chat, let me know how many years or how long have you been playing the trumpet? So I'm 26 right now. That's always weird to say my age. I don't really feel 26. So right now I'm 26, so I've been playing 13 years, 13, 14 years. So in the chat, let me know how long you've been playing trumpet. Or if you're watching the replay, let me know down below in the comment section. Pai Yuan, Pai Yuan, says I'm always concerned if using the Yamaha mute would create some bad habits. I would say yeah. I mean, if your main practicing is in a practice mute, then it will cause some issues because it's not really the horn. It's you just put something in the bell and it's you're not really practicing the trumpet. I mean, yeah, you are, but it's not the real trumpet. Like, because what I found out, like, if I practice with a practice mute a lot, then my lips are used to that back pressure. And so my air is used to that back pressure. So my body gets used to it. And I'm not used, because my trumpet is a reverse lead pipe. So it's a very free blowing horn. I can't talk. But if I go back to a practice mute and I go back to this horn, I feel the difference. My body feels the difference because I'm used to that back pressure. Also, clean your trumpet. I cleaned my trumpet the other day. It's been a while since I cleaned my instrument. And yeah, I was used to that back pressure. And once I cleaned it, it was like I'm playing on a whole new trumpet, a whole new other instrument, because the feel wasn't the same. So also clean your instrument at least once a month. All right. Tyler says, took my braces off 2 weeks ago. Any tips for getting my range back up quickly? I wouldn't worry about the quickness factor. Just worry about making the notes day by day. Just take it day by day. Don't worry about quick tips or a quick way to get it back. Just be consistent. Be consistent. Practice your range and everything every day. I would say use chromatic scales, and I talk about this in another masterclass about building range, and that's masterclass number 10. Yeah, number 10. Use chromatic scales to slowly and gradually build your range, um, and make each note feel very effortless and easy. So use chromatic scales to help you get there. There's also my improved range exercise that I love to do, and a lot of other folks love to do to get their range going. So practice those two things. But be very patient with yourself. Don't try to rush it. Don't try to rush it. Cortland says, thanks a bunch. Yeah, no problem. Block says, any tips on practicing efficiently? Because I practice 6 days a week, but I don't know if I'm practicing efficiently. That's an interesting question. Um, Now, do you mean practicing efficiently, like getting everything that you need to get done? Like you have a laundry list of things that you want to practice, and you don't get to them all? Is that what you mean, or is it you're not seeing the results because you're not practicing, you're not using your time efficiently? Is that what you mean? But either way, I'm gonna say this: um, write down your goals. Like have some. Oh, you're not seeing results. Okay. So what I would say is write down, be very clear on what your goals are in the practice room. So be very clear. If you want to be able to play at a certain speed, if you want to be able to do something, write that down. So if anyone has been following me on Instagram, they all know that I'm trying to be able to lock in a double G above the staff. So that's my goal. Like I want to be able to play that note cleanly with a good tone, uh, efficiently as possible in multiple registers. Um, so that's my goal. So I would say every day focus on your goals. So what's one goal that you're working towards? Are you trying to improve your range? Are you trying to improve your tone? Are you trying to learn a particular etude, or what are you trying to do in the practice room? Okay, what about lip slurs? Benjamin says he's been playing for 2 years. Colin says 29 years work on the horn. That's awesome. So if you can give me a Blocker, if you can give me some context, like what are you trying to do in the practice room, trying to get better at? Yeah, yeah. Keep your instrument clean, definitely. Pei Yuan says, or Pai Yuan, I'm sorry. 12 years of clarinet, switched to trumpet 6 months ago. I switched to trumpet because it is impossible to mute a clarinet. Well, trumpet is also a pretty great instrument too. All right. All right. So let's say, okay, bad at tonguing, right? So if you're bad at tonguing or single tonguing or multiple tonguing, let's just go with single tonguing for now. But I would say if you're trying to improve your single tongue, what I did, well, you have to kind of know the technique to really get a really clear tongue articulation. Email, what's up? 20 years. That's awesome. So when you're trying to articulate or trying to get better at tonguing, it's helpful to know the um, it's helpful to know the technique to playing a clean articulation. And so what that is, and there's different techniques for tonguing, but I only mastered this one technique, and it's with if you so this is kind of like my mouth. So this is pretend like my fingers are my teeth. This is my teeth. The top, my this part is the roof of my mouth, and then there's a point where my teeth. There's a point in all of our mouths where our teeth meet the top of the roof of our mouth, right? So when I tongue, let me put it this way: when I tongue, this is awkward. When I tongue, this is my tongue right here. I want the tip of my tongue, or at least a little bit, to hit the area right where the teeth meet the gum line, behind the teeth. So I want to tongue right there. And then what actually makes a clean articulation is not the actual strike, but it's the rebound of the tongue. So you want to make sure that your tongue isn't too lazy, and it's striking and rebounding quickly to let that air pass through, right? So that technique of trying to get a clean articulation, you let the space in between the teeth and the roof of your mouth be your target, and use that ta 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 or t to whatever. But if you say ta 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 ta, see where your tongue is striking, and then do some wind patterns. Notice how the tongue is striking and rebounding to let that air pass through. And then I'm going to put it to the trumpet. Right? So if I don't get a clean attack, there's two things that might be going wrong. If you don't get a clean attack and it doesn't sound clean like that or cleaner, um, there's two things that might be happening. Your tongue might be your tongue and your ear have to work together. Your tongue and your ear have to work together. So if one is ahead of the other, you'll hear it. So if there's more tongue than air, if the tongue comes first and the air comes second, you'll hear kind of this sound. Like it's like a percussive sound. And if the air comes first and the tongue comes second, it'll be airy and you'll get like an air ball, right? So it'll be an air and then tongue. So fia, fia. Let's see if I can reproduce it. Like I can't really do it because I'm so used to being able to tongue correctly. But you'll notice if you hear someone play and it's like an air ball, and then they tongue, or then you hear the note, the air is coming before the tongue. So what you want to do is make sure that the air and the tongue work together, and they activate the same time. Because if one is overlapping the other, you hear it. So that's just a quick thing about the technique of tonguing, is to make sure that your air and your tongue are working together. But what I did in the practice room to really clean up my articulation is to practice extremes. So I would practice really short notes versus really legato notes or tenuto notes, and I would try to make the sound as pure as possible, as clean as possible. So I would go back and forth between a staccato articulation and a legato or tenuto articulation. And then I would go back and forth between staccato and tenuto, and then try different articulations like a accent, by putting more emphasis on the beginning of the articulation. Ta 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 ta, and experiment that way, and see if you can get like a clean articulation and a clean sound on all types of articulation qualities. Okay, so that's what I would do. So to answer your question, you need goals. You need goals. You need something that is that is preparing you for the next step. So be very clear on what you want to happen. Do you want to tongue at 80 BPM, 90 BPM by, and then have a time limit? So if you want to, it's easier to do with music because there are bars, but with technique, you just have to work on it every day. So I would say just be very, very structured in your practice. Maybe on if you're using, I would use a timer. Use a timer for each segment of your practice. So if you're doing long tones, maybe do long tones for 5 minutes, and then maybe do finger dexterity for 5 minutes, and then do some tonguing for 5 minutes. Each segment is going to be for 5 minutes, and just so you can get through everything, because you don't want to spend too much time on one thing unless that's your goal to do that. So I think I'm rambling too much and spending too much time, but I want to stress the importance of goals. Have goals in your practice. Know exactly what you want to do, so you're efficient, right? Also, write down what you're working on, so you can look at the day before to see what you have covered. So those are my tips for that. I know it was pretty long-winded, but yeah, create goals, write down what you practiced every day, have a practice journal. Be very intentional with how long you spend on each thing. So also, if you're going to play for that long, rest for that long, like I said before. So hopefully those tips or that insight kind of helped you out a little bit. Okay, Pi says, I found your advice most helpful to me because I have flashy lips like your, oh, fleshy or yo bigger lips like me. My tutor and most YouTubers I found have rather thin lips, and I had a hard time following their tips on embouchure. Um, do you compress your lips against your teeth, or do you roll your lips over your teeth? I found literatures that suggest both embouchures. Let's see, what do I do? So I don't roll them over my teeth. I kind of just tuck them. Kind of just tuck them. I tuck them in, but it's not over my teeth. I just tuck them in. I make sure that there's no fleshy or red hanging out of the sides. So if I wasn't going to tuck in my lips, it's going to look like this. All right, you see all that lip hanging out. So what I do is I tuck in my lip to make sure that that extra lip isn't hanging out. All right. So this versus this. So that's what I do. I kind of, and it's really the bottom lip, right? So I tuck in the bottom lip, but it's not over my teeth. But you have to figure out what works for you. Um, you have to figure out what works for you, as far as like how much you need to tuck in order to get a nice sound, right? Block says, what about when you go higher in the register? Because I heard your tongue has to go higher to get higher register. And thank you for helping me. Block, just think about a higher syllable. So instead of ta, think of t. T, 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 T. So I'm gonna play an octave. I'm gonna play a second line G to an octave above that. So I'm thinking ta, T. Oh, yeah. Ta, T, ta. Yeah, I can't really sing an octave, but ta, T, ta, T. I'm thinking ta, T, ta, T. So it's bringing that note, bringing that tongue a little bit higher in the mouth. Sorry for the chip notes, but yeah. So yes, a higher tongue position for the higher notes. Let's see. Benjamin. I'm not a pro, but in my perpetual struggle, I like that perpetual struggle. I think making my tongue get taller really help getting higher pitches. Think of what your tongue. Yeah. Just like what I said. Yeah. O. Like I like to say to really simplify things. There's three main positions, and I talk about this in both my range building videos. There's three main positions. You can think as kind of like the neutral position. If you want to play a higher note, it's a spectrum because these are very slight movements. But the bigger the jump, the bigger the interval, the more drastic change that you have to make. So so the higher you go, the higher the tongue gets. So ah is going to be my neutral position. E is going to be for higher notes, and then oo for lower notes. So ah, e is for higher notes. Ah is neutral position. Oo is for lower notes. So oo I'm going to use for like a low G, a low C, or any low note. So I'm going to go ah, oo, ah, e. So that's what I'm using in my mouth. Um, ta, to, ta, ti, right? So hopefully that helps. I'm gonna call you PZ. PZ. He says thank you for the demonstration. Extremely helpful. Yeah, no problem. All right. So since there's no other any other questions, I want to get back to the masterclass question. So we covered email's question. I don't know email if you heard my response, but I think you'll be able to rewind this live stream while we're live right now, and catch my response if you weren't here in the beginning. So I got email, I got falling rain, Oka. Oh, cool, you got it. Awesome, great. Kenny, Kenny Raymond says warming up effectively. He has a problem with warming up effectively to play higher notes. I end up attempting the same high notes for 10 minutes until I can play up there comfortably. So my tips to that is if you're having a hard time or you're spending a lot of time on one note, if you're spending a lot of time on one note or trying to build your range, or it's taking him a long time to get to the note that he's trying to get, I would say maybe your goal is a little too ambitious. And why I say that is because you might not be you might not be playing efficiently enough to get to that note. So I would say try to take a like for instance if you're trying to play a high C. Um, so if you're trying to play a high C but you can't really get out, but if you can't really get out a first line F, if that first line F is a struggle, then I would say let the first line F be your goal, right? So if you're having a hard time playing a note, I'm chipping notes all over the place. Jesus. So if you're having a hard time playing that F, if you're having a hard time playing that F, but if you're trying to get to a high C, I would say kind of take a few steps back and let that first line F be your goal. Try to get that first line F to be the note that you're reaching for. And that goes for any note that you're trying to reach. If you're a beginner, and that C, say if the C is a hard note, if that note is hard for you to play, let that be your goal, right? So I would say if your goals may be a little bit too ambitious, Okay, with the higher notes. So I would say that, and then a good warm up to do. Again, I'm an advocate for chromatic scales. I love chromatic scales because it's the one thing that has helped me increase my range safely without hurting myself or developing bad habits. When because if I use the chromatic scale and I use it in a way where I'm allowing my ear to do most of the work, and plus it's easier. It's easier than a lip slur, and I want to focus on making sure each and every note is easy as possible, and I'm relaxed as much as possible. All right, so I would say use some chromatic scales to get up to the note that you're trying to get to, and then once you feel comfortable, um, use like some lip slurs or lip flexibilities to get you up there. But those are my tips, man. So I would say just maybe, yeah, just your goal might be a little too ambitious. So maybe try to clean up the notes that you can play and make the notes that you can play um, easier. See if you can play them a little bit quieter with less dynamic and go from there. All right. All right. So I got some questions here in the chat and some new people that are coming in. William, he says, "How do you play trumpet when you have an overbite?" Uh, do I have an overbite? I don't think I have a. Do I have an overbite? No, I don't. I don't know. I mean, what I would say is try to try to get the teeth aligned. Like try to when you open up, try to jut your jaw out to where your teeth are aligned, so you can let that air pass through. But my teacher back in high school, he had an underbite, so his bottom teeth went over his top teeth. Also, be very mindful of your natural jaw position and your natural how your airstream goes. If you're an upstream player or if you're a downstream player, and so one way to do that to find kind of where your optimum airstream is just blow. Just blow and find where the airstream hits the palm of your hand, in the middle of your hand. Just blow regularly. You don't have to use your aperture. But here's a demonstration. So just gonna blow. I'm gonna use my hand to find where my airstream is. So it ends up right here. So this is kind of where my airstream is. So find the airstream, and then I also have a video about that, like finding one of my mouthpiece or mouth placement or whatever videos. So check that out if you haven't. But this is where my airstream is. So that's where I'm going to angle my horn. Okay. I have to go, guys, pretty soon. I have to pick up my wife from work. I'm gonna answer a few more questions and then I'm out of here. I gotta go. But I appreciate all 18 of you guys just joining in and hanging out. So if you're here, just let me know who you are, man. I really like to see people that are returning and new folks. So I want to know everybody that's hanging out with me. All right, let me answer maybe two more questions and then I gotta go, guys. All right. Um, okay, so I got two more questions here in the masterclass. I'll answer two more questions from the masterclass, and then I'll answer one more question from the chat. That sounds fair. All right. So for Klaus, Klaus, he says that finding his voice. He says finding my voice is his biggest struggle. Right. So finding his voice, being an individual, and that's an awesome question. And It's a journey. So these are my tips for. I'm going to read this book. So I'm going to find this book. It's called Stealing Like an Artist, and I've been recommended to read this book, so I'm going to check that out. And if any of you guys have read that book, check that out because that might give you some insight on how to be you. You know. So my tip for that is to find your voice. Is to take all of your influences. Like for me, I want to think of the way that I play is a combination of Miles Davis, Roy Hargrove, and I would really love to play like Tom Harrell. So Miles Davis, um, Wynn Marsalis, and Tom Harrell. So those are kind of the three people that I look to and I grab influences from. So I would say listen to those folks a ton. Listen to those folks a lot, right? And and then also when you're done, like of course transcribe those folks, get some licks from those folks. But the next thing that you have to do is when you're learning a tune, or say if you learned a tune, and I would say transcribe your ideas. Transcribe your own ideas. So like if you say if you're doing a blues, right? If you're doing a blues, put on a blues backing track and record yourself. Record yourself singing along to the blues and do this for a couple choruses, maybe two, three choruses, right? And so you're singing, you're getting some ideas out, and so all this in the background is recording. Stop the recording, listen back to the recording, and transcribe what you're saying. Transcribe and be very mindful of like the ideas that you really liked. So if it's an idea that you're saying and you really like it, transcribe that idea. We spend so much time transcribing other people that we don't take the time to transcribe our own thoughts, right? So another way to find your voice is to compose. So write your own melodies, um, write your own solos. Like not only transcribe your own thoughts, but pre write out a solo, and just play it and see how you can compose it where it's like you love all the ideas that you love the ideas that you're playing. So I would say transcribe your own ideas, record yourself. I would say also like take ideas from your influences, like 3 to 5, because that's the people that you really love. Don't do this. Don't transcribe folks that people are telling you to transcribe. Only transcribe the folks that really resonate with you, because if they don't resonate with you, or if they do resonate with you, that tells you a little bit something about yourself. And if they play something and it just really you really like it, that's you. Those are things that you like. So be very mindful of those ideas that really catch your attention, because that's telling you about yourself. So take those ideas and try to put them in the solo. Write down a solo, like do a composed solo, and play it over a chord progression. So record your ideas, listen to your influences, um, and compose solos. Write your own music. These are all ways to find your voice, and these are all things that I've done. So those are my tips for that. All right, let's get to Paolo. He says, I really want to know about playing out of the scale of the trumpet. And so I wrote him back, and I'm not sure if he's watching right now, but I really don't really know what that means. He says, I really want to know about playing out of the scale. So what I'm going to say is that he might be asking how to make music with a scale. So my simple answer with that is try to play the scale as many ways as possible, right? So learn the scale up and down, be able to play the scale on different scale degrees, be able to play it in thirds, be able to play it in fourths, be able to play it triads on each scale degree, sevenths on each scale degree, playing up, playing down, alternate. Find any type of way to really ingrain a scale where you have all of these tools at your disposal, right? And so you can use all these things to really make music with. Now, the a simpler way to think about that is um, take a scale and apply a certain rhythm to it. Apply a certain rhythm to it. That's how you make a scale musical. Is not purely doing this. Like apply some rhythms to it. Like apply some rhythms to it and play around with the scale. So that's my tip on kind of how to make music with a scale is apply rhythms to it and do as many things you can to to really ingrain that scale. Um, play in thirds, play it in fourths, all that type of stuff. All right, so let me take one more question and then I gotta get out of here, folks. But I really appreciate everybody joining and hanging out. I know I went way over. I'm about to go into like an hour. I know I said 30 to 45 minutes, but I really love hanging out with you guys, and you guys ask some awesome questions. Um, and I'm hoping that this is providing a lot of value for you guys. All right, let me get to a question I haven't answered. Hey, Mike Hunt from Sweden here. What up? Eric, what's up? If you're still here in the live stream, what's up? He says, "How do I play Moments Notice, Giant Steps, and Cherokee?" So those tunes are like each bar has like maybe two chords in them, right? So two chords per bar. A good way to outline the harmony or be able to play over it is to play patterns. Play like either play the arpeggio because you don't have enough time, especially with giant steps. You don't have enough time to outline the changes because the change it happens quickly. So you only have a small amount of time to really make that change. So what I will say to practice is to practice arpeggiating each chord, and I would say practice patterns like 1, 2, 3, 5. And there's tons of permutations of 1, 2, 3, 5. You don't have to always play it like this. You can start on the second and do something like, or you can start on the third. Um, so that's a permutation. 1, 3, 3, 5, 2, 1 instead of one. Or you can do 2, 1, 5, 3. So there's three permutations right there. So you can do 1, 2, 3, 5, or you can do 2, 1, 2, 1, 5, 3. That's a permutation. That's a pattern. Or you can do um, da 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 da. Or you can do 3, 5, 2, 1. Or 5. You can start from the 5. Um, 5, 2, 1. So those are four digital patterns that you can play over those chord progressions. And why those patterns work is because um, it's if you scale them out, they're they work because those are the notes that allow the chord to sound the way it does, because it has the 1, it has the 3, and it has the 5. Those are notes that kind of make the chord sound the way it sounds. So I would say that arpeggiate the chords, do some patterns. Hopefully that makes sense. Also, it doesn't have to always be like, you use some rhythm, so you don't always have to play every chord change. That, like, make some music by using some rhythms. and pinpointing the important notes of each chord. So hopefully that helps you out with that. But yeah, just gonna shout out a few folks, and there's 10 folks in here. I appreciate every one of you guys joining the live stream. I really appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out with me and asking some really awesome questions. So let's see who's all in here. And then, all right, so I got KDST, which is Mike Hunt from Sweden. What's up? Chrism from Belgium. Awesome. That's Rail. That's awesome. He just arrived, or they just arrived. Mia from Philly. What's up? I'm starting as an amateur. Your videos are great additive to personal lessons. Thank you so much. I'm glad you guys are getting value from it. Benjamin says, what's going on? You're awesome, man. Your tips are very helpful. Always on my feed. Thank you so much. No problem. All right. Frankie, what's up? Thank you. He says you are great. Good job, brother. Thank you, man. I really appreciate your feedback. Wayne, thank you. He says you do such a great job. Thank you, man. Thank you for taking the time and being here. Chris Davis, what's up? Thank you, man. Thank you. I thank you everybody that supported me and really giving me some really good encouragement, man. This was always something that when I was growing up, I wish something like this was for me. Like when I was, learning the trumpet and finding my way. I kind of had to find my own way. So I wanted to pay it forward and help as many people as possible. Anthony, he says, first time on. I'm glad you made it, man. I'm about to get off in a few minutes, but I appreciate you coming in. Don't forget to watch this on the replay if you missed it. But I'm gonna close it out here, guys. Again, all 12 of you and everyone that has joined so far, I really appreciate you guys, being here, and it's really cool. It's really cool. It's cool. Cortland says, "Stealing Like an Artist," is that a book? Yes, that's the book title. Stealing Like an Artist. Yeah, that's the book. I would say go check that out. If you like this video, please help me out and take like 1 second and like the video, and because this really helps me get my content out to more folks. So if you're just joining me, or if you're watching this on a replay, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you're new. If you're new, please don't hesitate to subscribe and be a part of the squad. And also, I want to think of a name for you guys. I'm playing around with some names because there's 6,000 of you all. I can't believe it. It's 6,000 people subscribed to the channel, and man, I gotta give you guys a name because everybody else on YouTube has cool names for their subscribers. So I want a cool name for you all. All right, so I'm thinking about some stuff. If you have a cool name for this group, this our little community of 6,000 trumpet players or new trumpet players, put it down in the comment section. Put it in the chat. Some cool names you think will be fitting for our community. All right, so I'm gonna call it here. I know I lied about how long this was gonna be, but I'm having a lot of fun. So thank you for watching. Again, I'm Aaron, the Black Trumpeter, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace, y'all. Have a good day.